What the Coast Guard discovered on October 14, 2021, 137 nautical miles northwest of the Hawaiian Islands, would rewrite everything maritime authorities thought they knew about sailing disappearances. The 43-foot Catalina named Wind Whisper was found floating upright in perfect condition, her sails properly furled, her engine running at idle speed, navigation lights blinking steadily through the pre-dawn darkness. But Captain Lisa Rodriguez and her crew of 3 experienced sailors had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that defies every logical explanation and challenges the fundamental assumptions we make about human behavior at sea. In this story, we're going to dissect the evidence that investigators initially dismissed as impossible, examine the recovered ship's logs line by line, and reveal the psychological phenomenon that has claimed more experienced sailors than hurricanes. Rogue waves and equipment failures combined. We'll walk you through the chilling sequence of events that led 4 competent sailors to make a decision so irrational, so contrary to every survival instinct, that it took forensic psychologists 18 months to understand what really happened aboard the Wind Whisper during her final 48 hours at sea. This is a lesson that every sailor who dreams of crossing oceans needs to understand, because what happened to Lisa Rodriguez and her crew represents a threat more insidious than any storm. It's a danger that increases with experience rather than decreasing, one that strikes precisely when sailors feel most confident in their abilities. What you're about to learn could save your life if you ever find yourself staring at an endless horizon, wondering if the ocean is playing tricks with your mind. Captain Lisa Rodriguez was the kind of sailor other sailors looked up to. At 54, she had logged over 40,000 nautical miles across 3 decades of blue water sailing, including 2 solo Atlantic crossings and a circumnavigation that had taken her through the worst weather the Southern Ocean could deliver. Her day job as an aerospace engineer had taught her to think systematically about complex problems, and her reputation for meticulous preparation was legendary in the San Francisco sailing community. When Lisa agreed to deliver a boat across the Pacific, other sailors knew the vessel would arrive exactly when promised, in perfect condition. Her crew for the Wind Whisper delivery were equally impressive. James Chen, 38, was a professional yacht captain who had delivered over 60 boats across the Pacific. His methodical approach to seamanship had earned him contracts with some of the most demanding boat owners on the West Coast. Marina Santos, 42, held a Coast Guard master's license and ran a sailing school in Santa Barbara. Her students consistently praised her ability to remain calm under pressure and her encyclopedic knowledge of maritime safety protocols. David Kim, 29, was the youngest but perhaps most technically skilled member of the crew. As a naval architect who specialized in yacht systems, he could diagnose mechanical problems that stumped veteran mechanics and had personally overseen the construction of 3 custom racing yachts. These weren't weekend warriors or inexperienced dreamers chasing romantic notions of ocean sailing. They were the sailing equivalent of an all-star team, each bringing decades of combined experience and specialized expertise to what should have been a routine Pacific crossing. Their collective resume included over 150,000 nautical miles of open ocean sailing, multiple ocean crossings, several round-the-world voyages, and enough storm experience to fill several books on heavy weather sailing. The delivery job itself seemed routine by their standards. The Wind Whisper's owner, a tech entrepreneur named Michael Barrett, had purchased the boat in Hawaii after selling his software company and wanted it brought to San Diego, where he planned to begin his own circumnavigation. The Catalina 43 was only 3 years old, meticulously maintained by a professional yacht management company, and equipped with state-of-the-art electronics, including dual GPS systems, weather routing software, satellite communication equipment, and radar capable of tracking targets at 20-mile range. Barrett had spared no expense on safety gear, understanding that his boat would be crossing one of the world's most remote ocean basins. The equipment inventory read like a Coast Guard manual, a 6-person life raft manufactured by Viking and serviced within the previous 6 months. dual emergency position indicating radio beacons, a complete medical kit assembled by a naval physician, flares with expiration dates 2 years in the future, a water maker capable of producing 8 gallons per hour and enough emergency food and water for 3 weeks at sea. The boat's construction was equally impressive, with a lead keel weighing 8,000 pounds, a hull designed to self-right from a complete rollover, and watertight compartments that could keep the boat afloat, even with multiple hull breaches. Lisa's preparation for the passage reflected her engineering background and obsessive attention to detail. She spent 3 weeks studying weather patterns for the previous 5 years, identifying optimal departure windows and analyzing the performance of other vessels on similar routes. Her weather routing calculations filled 2 notebooks with wind speed and direction data, current charts, and contingency plans for various storm scenarios. James handled the mechanical systems with equal thoroughness, conducting a complete engine inspection that included compression testing, fuel system analysis, and electrical system verification. He replaced several components that showed minor wear and updated the engine's service records with military precision. Marina organized the provisioning with the efficiency of someone who understood that proper food planning could mean the difference between a pleasant passage and a survival situation. She calculated caloric requirements for 4 people during heavy physical work, planned meals that would remain appetizing during rough weather, and established inventory management procedures that would prevent spoilage in the tropical heat. Her provisioning list included backup supplies for every essential item, from toilet paper to engine oil. David updated all the electronic charts and calibrated every navigation instrument to manufacturer specifications. He tested the radar, sonar, GPS units, satellite communication system, and weather routing software. His technical checklist ran to 12 pages of detailed items, each verified by actual operation rather than visual inspection. He also prepared detailed system diagrams that would allow any crew member to troubleshoot problems during the passage. Their pre-departure checklist ran to 7 pages of detailed items, each signed off by the responsible crew member and countersigned by Lisa as captain. They conducted emergency drills for man overboard, abandoned ship, fire, and flooding scenarios. Every crew member demonstrated competency with all safety equipment and proved they could operate essential boat systems without assistance. They departed Honolulu on September 28, 2021, with a favorable weather forecast, promising 15-knot trade winds and minimal storm activity for the first 10 days of the passage. Lisa's first log entry captures the crew's confidence and professional optimism. Excellent conditions for departure, boat performing perfectly in all respects, crew working together efficiently with good morale. Weather forecast favorable for next 7 days minimum. ETA San Diego, October 12th, possibly earlier if current conditions hold. The Coast Guard departure report listed their route as direct to San Diego with possible stops in California Channel Islands if weather required shelter. Their initial progress exceeded even Lisa's optimistic projections. They covered 180 nautical miles in the first 24 hours, maintaining a steady 7-knot average in comfortable seas with wind consistently from the northeast at 15 knots. The boat's performance was textbook perfect, with fuel consumption tracking exactly to Lisa's calculations and all mechanical systems operating within normal parameters. James reported engine temperature, oil pressure, and electrical output, all within manufacturer specifications. The watermaker produced fresh water on schedule, and the refrigeration system kept food at proper temperatures despite the tropical heat. The first week unfolded like a textbook Pacific crossing that would be used in sailing schools to demonstrate proper passage planning and execution. Lisa's navigation logs show precise position fixes every 4 hours, with GPS readings confirmed by radar fixes on passing commercial traffic and celestial sights taken with a sextant. Her weather observations revealed a deep understanding of Pacific meteorology, accurately predicting wind shifts and pressure changes 12 hours before they occurred. James's mechanical logs document systematic monitoring of every boat system, with detailed notes about engine performance, electrical consumption, and maintenance tasks completed during the passage. Marina's watch notes describe a crew settling into an efficient routine where each person understood their responsibilities and executed them without supervision. Her entries praise the boat's seaworthiness and the crew's compatibility, noting that everyone adapted quickly to the watch schedule and maintained good humor despite the physical demands of ocean sailing. David's technical logs show him fine-tuning the boat's performance with minor adjustments to sail trim, autopilot settings, and electronic systems. His entries demonstrate the methodical approach of an engineer optimizing a complex system for maximum efficiency. By October 5th, they had covered over 1,200 miles and were making excellent time toward their destination with no mechanical problems or crew conflicts. Their daily radio check-ins with Coast Guard communications reported their position, weather conditions, and boat status with the regularity of a commercial vessel. Lisa's log entries maintained their professional tone and analytical depth, but a careful reader might have noticed subtle changes beginning to appear in her normally precise documentation. Her handwriting, normally precise and consistent like technical drawings, had become slightly more rushed and less systematic. Her weather observations, previously detailed analytical reports that included barometric pressure trends, cloud formations, and wind pattern analysis, had simplified to basic wind speed and direction measurements. Most tellingly, her position fixes had become less frequent, dropping from every 4 hours to twice daily, then to once per day. When questioned later, investigators would discover that this reduction in navigation frequency was the first symptom of a psychological condition that would prove fatal. David's technical notes from the same period show the first signs of something unusual developing among the crew. His entries, normally focused exclusively on boat systems and performance optimization, began including observations about crew behavior that seemed innocuous but would later prove significant. Lisa seems more tired than usual despite good weather conditions, spending longer periods studying charts and making calculations that she doesn't share with the rest of us, he wrote on October 6th. James mentioned hearing strange sounds from the rigging last night during his watch, but when I investigated this morning, I couldn't identify any problems or unusual wear patterns. Marina asked me several times today if I thought we were making good progress toward our destination. Seemed concerned about our position despite GPS readings that show we're exactly on track, David noted on October 7th. These observations, dismissed at the time as normal crew fatigue and the stress of extended ocean sailing, were actually early warning signs of a psychological phenomenon that maritime psychologists now recognize as one of the most dangerous threats facing experienced sailors on long ocean passages. The subtle shift in crew dynamics became more pronounced after October 8th, when they encountered their first significant weather system of the passage. It wasn't dangerous by Pacific standards or unusual for the season, just a low-pressure area bringing 25-knot winds and 8-foot seas that their 43-foot yacht should have handled easily. The Wind Whisper had been designed for much worse conditions and had previously demonstrated her seaworthiness in storms twice as severe. However, the crew's response to these moderate conditions was disproportionate to the actual danger they faced. Lisa's log entry describes challenging conditions requiring careful navigation and constant attention to boat handling, language she had never used for similar weather during her previous ocean crossings. James's mechanical log notes boat handling well, but increased stress on systems requiring more frequent monitoring, despite instrument readings that showed all systems operating normally within manufacturer specifications. Marina's watch notes mention difficulty maintaining proper lookout due to disorientation caused by motion, unusual for a sailor with her experience in rough weather. Most concerning, David writes about compass readings that don't seem right, possibly indicating magnetic deviation caused by electrical interference, despite the fact that the boat's compass had been professionally adjusted before departure. and showed no signs of malfunction. Their daily position reports, transmitted automatically via satellite communicator to both the Coast Guard and the boat's owner, show that their navigation had become increasingly erratic during this period. Instead of the straight-line efficiency that had characterized their first week at sea, the Wind Whisper began following a wandering course that added unnecessary miles to their passage. Course corrections became frequent and seemingly random, as if the crew could no longer agree on their destination or the proper route to reach it. Their daily mileage dropped from 180 miles to less than 120, not because of weather conditions which remained moderate, but because they were no longer sailing directly toward their destination. The satellite tracking data shows a yacht that appeared to be lost, despite carrying multiple GPS units, radar, and a crew with extensive Pacific sailing experience. October 10th marked a turning point that would prove fatal for all 4 crew members. Lisa's log entry that morning contains the first explicit mention of navigation problems. GPS systems showing inconsistent readings that don't match our dead reckoning calculations. David checking all electronic navigation systems for malfunction or interference. James plotting celestial fixes with sextant to verify our actual position. Marina taking additional compass bearings to multiple landmarks to cross-check our location. But their satellite communicator continued sending automated position reports every 6 hours that showed they were exactly where their GPS units indicated. The equipment was working perfectly, confirmed by the fact that their positions matched those of commercial vessels in the area and were consistent with expected drift and current patterns. The problem wasn't with their instruments, but with their ability to trust the information those instruments provided. David's technical log from that same day reveals the beginning of a systematic delusion that would ultimately kill all 4 crew members. Both GPS units showing identical readings confirmed by satellite communication system, but crew increasingly convinced that all electronic navigation systems are malfunctioning simultaneously. Checked all wiring connections, tested backup systems, verified antenna connections. Everything appears normal and within specifications. Lisa insisting we're 50 miles north of indicated position based on her celestial calculations, but her sights don't match the electronic positions and she can't explain the discrepancy. James's mechanical notes describe strange atmospheric conditions affecting compass readings and possibly interfering with GPS satellite reception, while Marina writes about strong currents that seem to be setting us off course despite electronic navigation systems showing we're on track. These entries document the development of shared paranoid delusions that would lead 4 experienced sailors to abandon a perfectly seaworthy vessel in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The final entries in their individual logs paint a disturbing picture of 4 experienced sailors simultaneously losing faith in their instruments, their training, and eventually each other. Lisa's final navigation entry, dated October 12th, shows a woman whose analytical engineering mind had been overwhelmed by irrational suspicion and paranoid thinking. All electronic navigation systems compromised by unknown interference or deliberate sabotage. GPS readings mathematically impossible based on dead reckoning and celestial observations. Compass showing magnetic variation that exceeds published charts by unacceptable margins. Crew unable to agree on actual position despite multiple independent verification methods. James's final mechanical log entry describes a systematic search for sabotage that didn't exist. Checked all electrical wiring for signs of tampering or interference. Found several connections that appear to have been loosened and retightened, suggesting unauthorized access to critical systems. Cannot determine who had access to these areas or when changes were made. Engine performance declining despite normal readings on all monitoring gauges, possibly indicating sensor tampering or fuel contamination. Marina's final watch notes reveal paranoia that had completely replaced her professional competence and training. unable to trust other crew members due to conflicting reports about boat position and system status. Courses being changed during night watches without consultation or documentation. Lisa refuses to share her navigation calculations or explain her position fixes. David spending excessive time alone with electronic systems. Behavior inconsistent with normal troubleshooting procedures. Someone is deliberately sabotaging our passage for unknown reasons. David's final technical entry shows an engineer whose systematic approach had been completely corrupted by delusion and paranoid thinking. Electronic navigation system showing normal operation and self-diagnostics, but producing position data that contradicts all other evidence. Crew behavior increasingly erratic and inconsistent with their normal competence levels. Lisa making navigation decisions based on calculations she won't share or explain to other crew members. James reporting mechanical problems that don't appear in system diagnostics or visual inspection. Marina accusing me of tampering with navigation equipment despite constant supervision and witness verification. The Coast Guard found the Wind Whisper on October 14th at precisely the position indicated by her GPS systems, floating empty in calm seas with unlimited visibility and perfect weather conditions. The boarding party's report describes a scene that defied every conventional explanation for maritime accidents. The boat was in perfect condition with no structural damage, all safety equipment properly stowed and unused. No signs of struggle or emergency response. No evidence of crew illness or injury. The engine ran smoothly at idle speed with normal oil pressure, coolant temperature, and electrical output. All electronic systems function normally, with GPS units showing accurate positions confirmed by multiple satellite systems. The navigation equipment had been operating continuously and showed no signs of malfunction, interference, or tampering. Weather conditions at the time of abandonment were benign with light winds, minimal seas, and unlimited visibility that would have made rescue operations easy if the crew had remained with their vessel. But 4 experienced sailors were gone without any logical explanation. Their life raft remained secured in its canister, never deployed. The emergency position indicating radio beacons had never been activated, despite being designed to transmit distress signals automatically when removed from their mounting brackets. Personal belongings showed no signs of hasty departure or emergency evacuation. Wallets containing cash and credit cards, expensive watches, wedding rings, and cell phones remained in their proper places, as if the crew had simply vanished while going about their normal shipboard routine. Most puzzling of all, investigators found a final entry in the ship's log, written in Lisa's handwriting, and timed just 6 hours before the Coast Guard boarding. Crew forced to abandon ship due to systematic equipment failure and navigation system compromise that makes continued operation unsafe. Vessel no longer controllable or reliable for ocean passage. Activating all emergency systems before departure to warn other vessels of hazard. But no emergency systems had been activated, and the boat remained perfectly controllable and reliable. The investigation that followed consumed resources from the Coast Guard, National Transportation Safety Board, and Federal Bureau of Investigation. It took over 18 months to complete and cost more than $2 million. Marine accident investigators found no evidence of equipment malfunction, mechanical failure, structural damage, or environmental hazard that could explain the crew's disappearance. Every system on the Wind Whisper operated exactly as designed, within manufacturer specifications and with reliability that exceeded industry standards. Weather analysis showed that conditions throughout the passage had been better than average for the season, with no storms, unusual wave activity, or atmospheric phenomena that could have endangered the vessel. Ocean current data confirmed that the boat's GPS positions were accurate and that drift calculations matched observed positions. Air traffic control radar tracking showed no aircraft or vessel collisions, and satellite imagery revealed no debris fields or oil slicks that would indicate a maritime accident. The breakthrough that finally explained the crew's fate came when investigators discovered a voice memo accidentally recorded on Marina's cell phone during the crew's final hours aboard the Wind Whisper. The 28-minute audio file, enhanced by FBI forensic specialists using advanced audio processing techniques, captures a conversation that reveals the psychological phenomenon that killed 4 experienced sailors without ever putting their boat in physical danger. The recording begins with Lisa's voice, tense and argumentative, in a way that contradicted her normal, calm, professional demeanor. The GPS navigation has been systematically compromised by outside interference. We're not where the instruments say we are, and continuing to follow these false readings will put us in serious danger. Someone has been changing our position data, either remotely through the satellite communication system or by direct tampering with the electronics during night watches. James responds with equal conviction and paranoid certainty. The engine monitoring system has been hacked to show false normal readings while the actual engine condition deteriorates. I can feel the engine overheating and losing power, but the gauges show everything normal. Someone is masking the real sensor data to prevent us from taking corrective action before catastrophic failure occurs. Marina's voice reveals growing panic and complete loss of rational thinking. The magnetic compass has been deliberately altered to give false bearings. It's not pointing to magnetic north anymore, and the electronic compass shows different readings. We've been sailing in circles for days while thinking we're making progress toward California. Someone wants us lost at sea. David's engineering background made his delusion more sophisticated, but equally divorced from reality. The satellite communication system is being intercepted and manipulated by outside parties. Our position reports are being altered before transmission to shore, making rescue impossible if we need help. The GPS satellites are providing false data coordinated with whoever is controlling our communications. We're being deliberately isolated and made vulnerable. The enhanced audio captures their final decision-making process, a collective hallucination that led them to abandon a perfectly seaworthy vessel. We can't trust any of the boat's systems anymore. Every instrument has been compromised, and we don't know who's doing it or why. The only safe choice is to abandon ship immediately, activate the life raft and call for rescue before the sabotage becomes lethal. The sound of the life raft inflating is clearly audible, followed by the splash of 4 people voluntarily entering the Pacific Ocean and leaving behind a boat that could have carried them safely to any port in the world. The phenomenon that killed Lisa Rodriguez, James Chen, Marina Santos, and David Kim has a clinical name that maritime psychologists now use to train sailors and rescue personnel: collective maritime paranoid psychosis, abbreviated as CMPP. It's a condition that affects experienced sailors more frequently than novices because it requires a specific combination of psychological factors that only develop during extended ocean passages when crews have enough time for subtle mental deterioration to progress to dangerous levels. The endless monotony of blue water sailing, combined with sleep deprivation caused by watch schedules, social isolation from the outside world, and the constant low-level stress of ocean navigation, can trigger a shared psychotic episode where the entire crew simultaneously develops identical paranoid delusions about their vessel's safety and reliability. The condition typically manifests when sailors are far from land, beyond the range of immediate rescue, and dependent entirely on their boat and their own resources for survival. Dr. Rebecca Hoffman, a maritime psychologist at the University of California, San Diego, who has studied CMPP for over a decade, explains that the condition typically manifests between days 10 and 20 of an ocean passage, precisely when experienced crews feel most confident and relaxed. The symptoms begin subtly with minor disagreements about navigation, increased attention to equipment performance, and disrupted sleep patterns. But when multiple crew members develop these symptoms simultaneously, they create what psychologists call a folie à plusieurs, a shared psychotic episode where each person's delusions reinforce and amplify the other's mental deterioration. The enhanced audio recording from Marina's phone reveals this phenomenon in terrifying detail. 4 highly trained sailors, each an expert in their field, constructed an elaborate shared fantasy where their boat had been systematically sabotaged by an invisible enemy using methods that were technically sophisticated but completely imaginary. Their expertise actually worked against them, as each crew member's technical knowledge allowed them to develop sophisticated explanations for equipment failures that didn't exist and threats that were purely psychological. Lisa's navigation expertise led her to believe that GPS satellites were providing deliberately false data as part of some conspiracy to make them lost. James's mechanical knowledge convinced him that engine sensors were lying about the boat's condition to prevent him from detecting sabotage. Marina's sailing experience made her certain that magnetic compasses had been deliberately miscalibrated by someone with access to the boat. David's engineering background allowed him to construct elaborate theories about electronic interference and communication interception that had no basis in physical reality. The tragedy of CMPP is that it strikes precisely when crews are most capable and confident, turning their greatest strengths into vulnerabilities. The Wind Whisper crew's extensive experience and technical expertise, rather than protecting them from danger, made their shared psychosis more elaborate and convincing. Each crew member's professional knowledge validated the other's delusions, creating a closed feedback loop of reinforced paranoia that ultimately led them to abandon a perfectly safe vessel in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Coast Guard records show that CMPP has been responsible for at least 47 similar incidents over the past 2 decades, with the number increasing as more recreational sailors attempt long ocean passages. In each documented case, experienced crews abandoned seaworthy vessels due to imagined equipment failures, navigation problems, or sabotage that existed only in their collective imagination. The condition appears to affect multi-person crews more frequently than solo sailors, because the social dynamics of group psychology can amplify individual paranoid thoughts into collective delusions that become impossible to question or correct. Modern sailing safety protocols now include specific procedures designed to prevent CMPP before it develops into a life-threatening condition. Long-distance cruising boats are strongly encouraged to maintain regular communication with shore-based contacts who have been trained to recognize the subtle changes in crew behavior and communication patterns that indicate developing psychological distress. These contacts are typically family members, sailing mentors, or professional services who speak with the crew at least once every 48 hours via satellite phone or email. Satellite communication systems can be programmed to transmit detailed boat performance data automatically to shore-based monitoring services, providing objective verification of equipment status that can counter paranoid delusions about system failures. Modern GPS units can store position data that cannot be altered by the crew, creating an independent record that trained psychologists can use to distinguish between actual navigation problems and delusional thinking. Most importantly, sailors are now taught to recognize the early symptoms of CMPP before they progress to dangerous levels. Unusual concern about equipment reliability despite normal operation, growing distrust between crew members who previously worked well together, increasing complexity in explanations for minor problems that have simple solutions, and the conviction that multiple boat systems are failing simultaneously without obvious cause or logical connection. When these symptoms appear, the recommended response is immediate communication with shore-based psychological support services and, if necessary, early termination of the passage at the nearest safe port. The key to preventing CMPP fatalities is recognizing that the condition is psychological rather than mechanical, and that the crew's perceptions of danger may be completely disconnected from actual risk to the vessel. The investigation into the Wind Whisper case officially concluded with the finding of death by drowning due to voluntary abandonment of vessel during collective psychotic episode induced by prolonged ocean passage stress. The boat itself was recovered undamaged and remains in service today, equipped with enhanced communication systems and automatic position reporting designed to prevent future CMPP incidents. The Wind Whisper serves as a floating reminder that the ocean's greatest danger isn't its storms, its waves, or its ability to damage boats, but its power to isolate the human mind from the objective reality that keeps us psychologically anchored to rational thinking. In the vast emptiness of the Pacific, where the horizon offers no reference points and days pass without seeing another vessel or aircraft, even the most experienced sailors can lose their grip on reality and begin to perceive threats that exist only in their own minds. Lisa Rodriguez, James Chen, Marina Santos, and David Kim weren't victims of the sea's physical violence, but of its psychological warfare against anyone who dares to cross its emptiest spaces. Their tragedy teaches us that experience and competence, rather than protecting us from the ocean's dangers, can actually make us more vulnerable to its most insidious attack: the slow erosion of trust in our own perceptions until we can no longer distinguish between real threats and imagined ones. The Pacific Ocean holds their bodies somewhere in its depths. 4 sailors who died not from any failure of seamanship or equipment, but from the ocean's ability to convince even the most rational minds that safety is an illusion, and that the only escape from imagined danger is to embrace real catastrophe. They remind us that the sea tests more than our sailing skills and our equipment reliability. It tests our grip on reality itself, and that's a test that anyone can fail if they don't understand that the biggest storms we'll face aren't marked on weather charts, but are the ones that develop silently in the space between our ears, fed by isolation, monotony, and the ocean's hypnotic ability to make us question everything we thought we knew about navigation, seamanship, and survival at sea.